That's what I mean.
Okay, we're gonna call the meeting to order, and we have a quorum, so hooray.
And John, sorry, and I would sit in her office and say, I can't get any connection, Julie.
Yeah, you had the advantage for sure. And in a good kind of way, politically, right? Yeah, so.
All right, so we neglected to approve October's minutes at our last session, and our quorum walked out, so we need to get the October minutes approved.
I move.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great, and the November, as short as they are, we get somebody to move to.
I think I wasn't there. Can you officially have minutes at a non-quorum meeting? I think you cannot.
It started out as a quorum,
Oh, it did?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then,
I wasn't there.
in the last,
Left.
Okay.
Bob had to leave for another meeting, but we did have a quorum, so we do actually. So someone to move to have the November minutes approved?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? All right, minutes approved. Thank you.
Jane.
I noted.
If anybody wants to see them, I printed a copy here. So that takes us to the working draft of the TIF.
Yep.
So if you want to go ahead.
I'm going to just give a quick overview of what, we took the property list. We removed the railroad property, which was state property. And the reason we did that is we were looking at, we have a statutory limitation on the square footage, and with the, we were over. So that was an easy one to take out because that doesn't get us any benefit. Anything that goes there, we're not getting any value on or whatever. So the property list now is separated into three categories because we're designing this TIF in terms of, its character as having three components to it, a trinity, as it were, which might be an appropriate analogy for the season. The first is the industrial park properties, and those are clustered around the existing, obviously, the industrial park, including the park and some adjacent properties. The second is we call the Route 1 and Village properties. We took the Village and the core and some key properties along the Route 1 corridor and just combined that into a long loop, on that. And then the third, which is the smallest, is titled the water-dependent properties. And there are three properties, the two town-owned properties, Pine Street and the
Marine Park.
Pardon me?
Marine Park.
Marine Park, and also the adjacent property to Pine Street, which was once contemplated, there was a tentative.
Harry Cabot's.
Harry Cabot's, property on that there. Now, two of those, obviously the town properties are not, there's no valuation, they're tax acquired, but they are a receiving area for improvements dealing with enhancements for fishing or aquaculture. And then we fleshed out the introduction a little bit more. The wording that Bob suggested the last time, I need to put that in as an opening paragraph, kind of like a quick paragraph that describes the evolution of the economy in Waldoboro, from shipbuilding to, manufacturing, ending with Sylvania, and now we're in a new phase, and this TIF is designed to put Waldoboro back to work and, employment. So that will go in under, kind of an opening statement in the introduction here yet. And then the other thing, we kind of updated the work development programs. We fleshed out a couple, separated them. I didn't change the estimates too much. That's a kind of a project, a task and project. The only thing I did do was there was a definite addition, and that was in the community-wide investments was the cost of planning and implementing a Waldoboro tourist development strategy. Tara highlighted that. That was in the comp plan, and we didn't include it. And I just put a placeholder there for the estimate, and that really is just a placeholder on that. So basically, the sewer extensions are not, the project list hasn't changed very much from what we originally had. There's some duplication in some of them. Some things in the community-wide are also in the improvements made within the district, and that's fine, because we're just highlighting, different components of of the same project sometimes, which is perfectly fine. And then the rest is we will put together after we get through the discussion with the select board. Because what we have to do with this list of properties is take this list and we have to refine the values with Darryl a bit, and then we have to create another list with these properties that show from year 1 to year 30 what the projected value increase would be for each of those years. So that's a whole other table. And the way we're going to do that, the only way we really can do that is, we do know that we actually do know there'll be some improvements to the existing park, but the other properties, we're going to anticipate increases in value based on just a standard escalator. We're going to look at what the increase in values has been over the last X amount of years and apply that here for our estimate. It's purely an estimate because we don't know of any other parcel other than yours definitively if something's going to happen within the next year or so. So we have to do an estimate.
So this escalator is, 1 or 2% or something like that. It doesn't anticipate any other than George's property, perhaps.
Yeah, it is going to be,
Structural or
we're going to figure it
significant
out.
change.
We just did it in Rockport, very similar situation. We expanded the TIF, and we had no idea, there was only one property that we knew something was going to happen, but everywhere else, we anticipated, but we just took an escalator, and it was like 1.67% that we did for the addition on that. We may be similar, we're probably going to be somewhere in that range. But we take our historic increase. I'm sorry, George.
I'm going to show my ignorance of everything here, but listening to the news or a person, anyway, there have been more problems with water and sewer at the school district.
Yeah.
If that were just to analyze,
Yep.
analysis by extremes, if that system just failed and the school, is there a way that interfaces with this process? If there was a real priority commitment to get that fixed?
The TIF is, again, as we said before, the TIF is limited to economic project and economic development. What I would recommend.
But if there was a road as part of this, go ahead.
What we would have to do, I would suggest a two-prong attack. One is we contact USDA for a loan grant for the sewer. That would be our go-to people anyway for that. John Fancy is, very, he's had a lot of experience dealing with that.
Good man.
Yeah, very good man. And the second thing is we look at the TIF and say, can we, somewhere getting to the high school, is there an identifiable projects
Along the way.
along the way?
Yeah.
And so the TIF can fund, maybe up to the entrance to the high school. I'm just,
Yeah.
that serve those properties, and then we use other funding to do the rest.
But that would have to be, that's, for it to fit into the TIF program, it's got to be private investment?
Well, to fit into the TIF program, the economic development has to be somebody, let me give you a couple scenarios. Let's say we say, all right, there's a parcel out there on Route 1 before the main town road that we want to designate as a future industrial park. All right? Because at some point, you're going to be
full,
out of
yeah.
capacity.
Yeah.
So we do that, and then we say, that's our future industrial park, and our goal is to bring in sewer and water to serve that. That fits into the TIF.
Okay.
Or we could say, you mentioned a road in the back.
Parallel road, yeah.
Yeah, to serve, the only thing is that it clearly has to serve, future economic, so the zoning has to reflect that and things like that.
And it can't be done with a wink. It's got to be a legitimate.
Oh, yeah, this is gonna take time.
Yeah, no, I only meant, is there any impact on this process we're doing right this minute?
No, our work plan is ready,
Okay.
is flexible enough to do that.
All right, that's all I really
But
did.
you wouldn't be, this is forward thinking.
yeah,
We're years down the road with this.
We have to build up money in this.
Right.
Now, we have let's say, I'm saying 5 years. We're not gonna have enough money in this to do much of anything for at least 4 or 5 years, at least, bare minimum. But let's say we have, in that time period, we start to see, how much we're building in value in that, and that we anticipate maybe over the course some additional projects to come on. So we have an expectation that the TIF fund is gonna grow. What we can do, if we've identified a project, we can bond for that project, all right? And then we can use the TIF income to pay the bond on that. And we've done that, that's how we finance we did a sewer expansion in Rockport, that's how we did that, and we're doing another one, the final phase, and we're doing that the same way on that, where the TIF is gonna pay for that bond issue. In
But
fact,
that wouldn't help particularly with something, say, extending the school sewer problem, which is gonna be sooner than later, probably.
Yeah.
Is there any way to retroactively recover some of the investment for running up the lines up Route 1?
No, this is,
Nothing.
no.
When you're tax exempt, you're out.
Yeah.
We're looking for people that,
But again, you have to look at the TIF and the TIF funds that we're targeting for economic in a strategic way as to all of our capital improvements. So now, we have the universe of capital improvements that includes these, plus a whole host of others, fire truck, whatever, expansion to this building, all sorts of things, rec center, all sorts of things. Now, what we're saying is, all right, for some of those, we have now a built-in way to finance. So technically, that frees us up general fund money that we normally have now to use. We should have, in a way of thinking, it should give us more capacity from
It
funds
gives us
to
leverage.
do things, yeah. And we're also, we can leverage, this money is great to leverage grants, because we have it in hand. So we can go off on a dime and apply for a grant and say, we've got the money in hand.
This would be
Yeah.
matching funds.
Match. And we're doing that with, a quick example, in Rockport, the TIF and the bond, we immediately have the funds for an EDA application. Because normally, you can't put the final EDA until you have the matching funds in hand.
You got it,
Sometimes you
yeah.
wait a year or two to get it. With a TIF, and you have it there, so it gives us that, we can move faster, quicker. So you have to look at that high school in that context now. I have all these other things I want to do. All right, I got a source for that now, so I can concentrate on this
But
too.
realistically, we're talking about, for significant, for example, contribution to a grant application, we're 5 or 8 years to get a chunk of money together.
Oh, yeah, a big chunk, unless we, again, it's all gonna depend on, how much, these properties, as they, if activity begins to happen there, that TIF fund can grow. Just this one project for the eel is gonna add significant value, and there might be another one, and it might break free with something else too. So, all that it does add up rather quickly. It's like compound interest,
In addition to the reallocation of resources you're alluding to.
Yeah.
The definition of TIFs evolves over time as well.
Well,
Is it conceivable that at some point in time, whoever it is, may
the
decide,
powers to be, yeah.
education really is related to economic development? It's kind of key to that?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Well, what's funny is not what's funny, but the state did allow Brunswick to use their TIF funds for education when the base closed. They had
They carved out
a
an
special wink and a whatever, which was probably appropriate, because they took a hit, So, you're right, it does evolve over time. And then the TIF fund, the rules have changed, not a lot. Actually, the previous administration tried to tighten them up more, much more tightly towards economic development than we've had.
Does Belfast, are they in a TIF?
Yeah, yeah.
So do they get, if the salmon farm proceeds, does Belfast get
know.
a big hit from that?
I don't know if, I'm pretty sure, yeah, that's in the TIF district. I'm pretty sure that. But right now, I think I believe their TIF fund is kind of maxed out. They did the Front Street improvements.
Oh.
That walkway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That went in, that was all funded with the TIF.
Wow.
You know, but again, you know, trails, we have trails in here, that can be riverfront walk. All those things are, and that's specific they changed the rules years ago to allow that. A lot of towns
Oh,
have
the
taken
waterfront.
advantage.
So walk me through that. How's that an economic,
Because the state deemed it, I'm not, I don't mean to be flippant, but there clearly is you know, you can attach, and you have to show that there's a tourist attraction component to this, and the ones that have been done have truly been, you know, it attracts people to the area and enhances their business districts.
The capital investment on the waterfront there is
Oh, yeah.
breathtaking.
Bath is-
Private investment.
Bath is using it, you know, from their tourist center back, you know, to the downtown, and it does work. I mean, Thomaston didn't use it for the trail work, but they put that new trail in that connected where the city hall, town hall is, and down back to the trail on the water. That's a wonderful trail, and they just put that in. There's constantly people on it. So it does, you know, there is a direct connection to it, and that's what it was. You know, so you're right, it does evolve. So if you you have a special thing, lobby hard. Yeah.
so here's my ignorance. Does the town of Waldeboro, would the town of Waldeboro be responsible 100% to bring town water and sewer to the schools?
I don't
Is
think
that,
we'd
is
ever.
that on the town? Or is that a
Well,
state?
It's federal money, there's a lot of federal money available.
Well, no, but-
Federal- That's what I'm
well, there's-
wondering. Like,
I don't know
there's-
what the percentages are, but
There's
it's not
five,
all in
there's
town.
5 towns in the school district.
Right.
Yeah.
So that complicates the issue a little bit. All the real estate is in Waldeboro.
Yeah.
And I think the only way you'd ever get sewer and water out there would be as it would be a driving force, but it would be an extension of a system you could justify other ways.
And then even a question of, is the town of Waldeboro's water system capable of handling?
Yeah.
That's a long run.
We have the volume.
You need a lot of head on the water to get
Well,
that far.
we got solar electric powered pumps.
Yeah, there you
There you go,
Serious.
Yeah,
absolutely.
if you're, I mean, you could do that a couple of ways, you know, quick and dirty to a destination, or try to plan a route that anticipates future development.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of federal money. The money we would get from USDA would be mostly loan. There'd probably be a small grant component.
I don't think their waters, I shouldn't say this, but I think they got problems with their water fountains too. I mean, I think there's,
They
maybe it's
were
not the water
bringing
itself, but there's,
bottled water in, I think, for
Yeah.
years. I think they still are.
I don't know if it's the wells or the plumbing, but I think bottled water for some reason.
Yeah. I think it all has to do, because of the design and placement, the subsurface system, you know, on that,
Yeah.
there's the real key to and they've been those systems
For a long
have been a
time.
problem for a long time.
Yeah. Squishy soccer fields.
Yeah.
How much pressure do you and Max see in Waldeboro for new housing that we might put along a road into SAD 40? Would we have a number of people available interested in building houses if they had sewage and water along the road?
Building houses along Route 1?
No, the
No,
new
just
road,
Parallel road.
parallel into the high
Oh.
school.
In the high school. I would say no, not at this time, but there could be.
The sewage and water aspect would definitely be a selling point.
Yeah, I don't know anyone right now, but Bill and I were looking at, there was a developer who was looking, and we were limited to wherever there was sewer and water.
Exactly.
But that was a different, that wasn't like single-family detached.
Yeah.
He was interested in more multi or, you
Yeah,
know,
but-
yeah, he needed sewer and water.
But sewer and water is certainly something people are
Yeah.
looking for in their
Exactly.
buildings.
Yep, and relatively close to the school would be an advantage for a lot of people.
Yep.
It's,
Put an IMAX in there.
depends on the price point for housing right now. Builders can't afford generally to build on a mid to low point. They have to build up above because the cost of materials is so high. They've got to get to the higher ranges. So then there's a limited market.
Mixed
for
bag,
that.
yes.
Yeah, for that. If anything, that's on your rural areas where they want a lot of privacy and will want a large lot, or they'll be on one of the peninsulas, you know, where they want some access or views to the water or something like that.
But the one thing is proximity to the schools.
Precisely.
I could see families wanting proximity to the schools.
School teachers, if they can afford the house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But we have a declining, rate, Waldeboro's pretty steady in our demographics for children, but the surrounding communities are waning. we're aging faster and faster, and we're not bringing
I
in
know
a
I
number
am.
of people. If we had more jobs, we might be able to
Get some young
attract
folks
or
in,
keep
yeah.
them here longer.
So what's the next step with this now?
The next step for this is to have a workshop with the select board.
Basically explain it?
Yeah, explain it, and then, once we get through that, then we can start, putting in all the statutory requirements of it, and then start rolling out public meetings.
Do you anticipate getting this onto the warrant
Yep.
Yeah,
in that short time?
do we have a draft article at this point to look at?
No, not yet, no, we're
Okay.
gonna wait till after the select board meeting, and then we can
Okay.
pull
How
that.
soon can you meet with the select board?
We figured in January,
Okay,
yeah. The last conversation we had when Julie was here, she said that would be fine for like 5 o'clock before, an hour at least before. We'll get copies of this out, and
yeah, the agenda for January is getting really full.
really tight, yeah. Well, even if, this is important for timeliness, because
So if it were
we
the-
need to kind of get everybody on board
Yeah.
for the select board, so to see.
Do we need, does the EDC need to vote on this, or is this?
Yeah, the way this process works is that select board, some public info meetings, and then we do the formal public hearing, and then it goes to the town meeting. After the town meeting, then it gets submitted to DECD for review and approval, and that could take 2 to 5 months.
But do we vote on this so that the selectmen can hear it?
Do we need to vote on moving this to the select board?
I think we should, and then, Bob, would you kind of forward a time? If nothing, if we
Yeah, we
even
need-
have to go to your first meeting in February, fine.
But we kind of need to move backwards from the public hearing date, because that
Yeah.
is essential in order
Yeah.
for it to be.
I think that's what you've done, though. You've backed,
Yeah, we're fine. We need to have one statutory requirement for a public hearing, and that's the one that will back off. But we also
That
need
would
to have public info meetings that are,
Yeah,
Question, the list of all the properties that are in the TIF on the 3 categories, right?
yeah.
Do those people get formally notified that they've been put on that list, or how do you do that?
We can. We were just gonna, we have to submit a map with this, and once after we get out of the select board meeting, we'll kind of get that map set up, because we have a rough one right now, and then we
Yeah.
would publish that.
And then they have to understand how that impacts their property.
Well, it doesn't
doesn't
impact them at all, unless they want it to be there. And that's why
Well,
we,
if they don't want it, some people will not want it, I've heard. by the
Why?
way.
then we
why?
can, well,
It's different,
we're
it's new.
pretty open with that. We did those questions, and the tack that we're taking is, let us know, we'll just put another property in. We're not gonna,
But what is, in terms of, I think my question also, and I may have asked this before, but what are the areas where we would get pushback?
if your property's in there, it doesn't affect anything, because all it would be is, we tried to pick properties that are zoned industrial, commercial.
Right.
And the presumption is that we're presuming, because it's in the industrial zone, that's what it's gonna be used for.
Couldn't
But if
enhance-
you just wanna sit on it and do nothing with it and aren't gonna develop, tell us, because then we can find another property. So we're not gonna, it's not a bad thing, it's just, we just want to make sure that the properties we put here have the potential to perform in 30 years, so let us know now.
It
Yeah.
should enhance the value of your property.
Well,
Only if you are committed to the town being more
It
successful.
could, it could.
Jan?
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we request the first available opportunity of the select board to have a pre-meeting workshop
All right.
to do a formal presentation.
Bob, can you
I-
explain that?
yeah, I've just sent the text.
Somebody second that motion?
Seconded.
All in favor? All right. Passed. Wonderful. Nice
Oh,
work.
good, good.
Nice work, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so that takes us to, I guess Julie's not here, so is there a town of Waldeboro update?
Max, do we have?
Max,
anything?
anything going on? I'll let you
Officially,
finish that
You can keep those.
important note.
Um,
Anything with LED lights?
I'm not aware.
not that I'm aware of.
Like, where do those projects stand now? The lights here
Well,
and the street?
we're trying to get other towns involved in the streetlight project
Okay.
to leverage and get the cost down. And she's been talking to Camden in particular, and I think,
How did she make out in the conversation with the Chris Acorn?
I'm not aware of a conversation with Chris.
I set it up,
Good.
and I'm just wondering whether Chris was able to sell Julie on the fact that he was quite capable of running a project of that type, present a viable bid.
She only, well, if you're talking about bids received, we only got the one, and that was
At the
from
moment.
Real Term. No one else.
Chris is gonna
came
get
in.
back to me, and
Yep.
he hasn't quite yet.
No one else came in. So it's out to the other towns. That's where she's trying to pull it all together.
And the LED lights
I
for
don't-
this building?
I don't know about this building.
We did get two
That's-
kind
It was a while
of
back.
diverting proposals, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
sort of
about a
on
year
my
ago.
watch. Julie actually tasked me with doing that, and just because my personal life is a little bit complicated right now,
right.
I haven't been remiss, I haven't gotten on top of that. I hope to after the first year.
Big cost savings.
All right.
Yeah, and the first thing to do is talk to Midcoast and a couple of other vendors and just get the generic walkthrough. And I've talked to Midcoast and they're ready to do it. They just need me to say, let's schedule a time.
Yeah.
And they were in their heating season, so they were really busy, I was busy.
We
That's
were
sort of
also
Ready
hoping
to
get
do- you lost me
feedback
there.
from, sorry, we were also hoping to get feedback from Seth on the larger project as well, your group on that as well.
Which larger project?
The streetlight project.
Yes, the last I heard, I thought there were two bids. I may have that
No,
wrong.
there's just one.
There was a whole series of questions, as I think I reported, from one apparently serious bidder. I think they were out of Massachusetts. And I don't know that the responses ever got to that company. That's another thing that perhaps I was a little slack on. So I was surprised to hear there was only one bid and that Julie had suggested we go out and rebid it. And we could actively solicit input that we didn't do very actively before. We threw it out there and saw what we got. But it's a big enough project, so I think, and particularly if we go regionally, if we get 2 or 3 other towns, there would be more interest, and I certainly think we should do that. There we go. I think we should do that.
Found a way home.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
We're just doing Town of Waldeboro update.
Oh, what do you want to know?
We're curious about the status of the
Streetlights.
streetlight project.
I'm working with Audra up in Camden, where it looks like 5 of us, or towns are going to go together.
Oh, nice.
So,
Which 5 towns? Camden, obviously.
Camden, Union, Warren,
Rockport,
Rockport, I think, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So,
They were all kind of working, thinking about it, yeah, at the same time, so that's good.
it's a good
In
thing.
Waldeboro.
Yeah. But we would go first in that scenario.
And they would piggyback on the pricing that we can negotiate, or something roughly
Well,
like
we're
that?
hoping we'll negotiate a better price.
Right, that's
than
what I
what we
mean,
got,
yes,
yeah.
good.
Should.
Should be easy.
Should be,
Bigger-
yeah.
bigger deal.
Awesome. That's great news.
But, Paul and I have been playing phone tag. He has all the information. I think he's running his numbers so that he knows what they are, because they provided all the information to me and I provided it to him.
And we still think it's a 2019 project?
Yes.
Good.
They're not difficult to get, once they get going, like,
Right.
whatever.
And the only thing that we've added and the select board talked about, well, the subcommittee of the select board talked about, was we have so many of these dangerous intersections. And we think that we need to actually add, in the past, the problem with adding light has been the expense of it. And, like Old Augusta Road
That's a good.
and 235, that
Yeah.
would be served well for light. I'll be honest with you, we've gotten a ton of comments in the last couple of weeks about 235 and 1. And I drove it last night and I can see what they're saying. I mean, DOT went out there and put some reflectors out there, but that's a hard thing to see
Yeah.
when you're coming up on it.
That's a great idea. That's a great.
We tried.
Yeah, the poles are already there, basically.
Yeah.
Just
It
have
was
to have
just the
lights.
fixtures which we're buying anyway.
Power, yeah.
Right, so that to me makes a world of sense.
Are you gonna be allowed to use CMP poles?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Remarkable.
yep.
Okay,
Yep, we
good.
don't have to.
And then there was a question about the building, LED.
I know we got 2 proposals about a year ago.
Right, you have them.
Yeah, right. And they're both completely different. One is all new fixtures, and the other one is like replacement
Retrofit.
lights.
We did replacement lights in the library. That's how we did that.
Okay. Well, and but the problem is they're not apples to apples. They're apples to
Okay.
oranges, the 2 proposals. So I don't know if we have to do a better job
We-
defining.
We could do a better job defining it, or what, I mean, it's up to you, what you think. Do we really need all new fixtures?
Well, it's a cost savings. I mean, that's why you do it.
We
Well-
changed the bulbs in our lights in our 1980 office trailer, and they got much, we actually plugged half of them back in. We've got two bulb fixtures, and we got most of them with just one bulb, with some of these new bulbs.
Because
Yeah,
they're
Give
that
you
much
enough
brighter.
light.
or-
Yeah, they're that much brighter
Wow.
and less to run
There
too.
should be
Quarterly cost to run.
differences in the efficiencies between the new fixture and just the bulb.
Yeah, I know.
I
It's
don't know
just-
if
it's
there's
a-
that much of a difference, though.
it's a big
That
nut.
would be something you'd want
Yeah,
to take a
okay.
look at.
Yeah, so that's, it just seemed to me that if we wanted to be fair to the two bidders,
Could-
that we should
We
go
can.
back and
Could we give
define.
them each the request to answer the other one's
Well, the
question?
one did, and he thought it was overkill. That was, I think, what he came up with is, that's a lot of money you're gonna spend for doing every fixture in this
Right.
building. You might wanna think about just doing,
Right.
Just the bulbs.
Yeah.
well, he had to change something else.
The
The
ballast had to
transformer.
be.
The ballast and the
And the
bulb,
bulb.
yeah. But use the existing fixtures
Yeah,
versus.
but he went in there and he did it in a couple of days and the library was done. It
Yeah.
wasn't a big deal.
Changing fixtures or?
And the, and
How much
and
have
the
they
ballast.
seen a difference?
We haven't had him long enough to know
Oh.
for sure, but we've held on the electricity bill for the library, which has a lot of lights, and we're in the winter season now. We're gonna come in under budget on heating the building, and part of that, because we're now heat with heat pumps, part of that is the savings from the electricity on the lights.
Use that to fire the heat pumps, in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it probably, and those are old bids, so it probably makes sense to
Redo
go
'em.
back to those, to the bidders with a, with a ask for, I'm actually okay with that. I think the big building, where the fire trucks and ambulances are, I think they were gonna put new fixtures in that building, but this building was gonna have just,
The
which I
retrofit.
think's the right way to do
That
it.
makes sense.
So that makes
Does
sense, so
make
we can go
sense.
back to, I think I have them here, or they're in the other folder at home.
I have them.
Okay, so if we could go back to both of them and ask for that
Okay.
distinction.
That distinction, I
Yeah.
can do that.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Do you need a motion for that, or just do it?
Well, they don't really tell me.
Yeah, that's right.
I think you're gonna do it.
It's a great recommendation.
And that would be a 2019 project as well, obviously, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm hoping for it, as long as we have money in the capital budget. All this is pending money, all we need is time and money.
It'd be interesting to know how long it would take to pay for itself, though, a project like that. Probably not long. I bet you 5, 6 years is probably,
Actually, less than that. in
maybe
some
less than
cases,
that.
yeah.
Well, we are meeting all about, that is one good thing that we are doing, is we already started having our budget meetings. So that was pretty, that's a good
So
thing.
you could probably take the one proposal, that was the low-cost proposal, and that would be a pretty good amount of money that you should budget for that
Well,
project.
right, what we're doing right now is we're going over capital, and what we found with the capital, Peg and I, is that, there's an amount, and they tend to, in the past have earmarked it, but then when they need it, they just take it, so that's not exactly I realize a budget's a plan, but a capital plan, normally you should be a little, so we're tightening all of that up, and the budget committee and the select board, I think, were
Yep.
thrilled.
Yep.
I think that
So
makes sense.
we've been,
It does.
and we're talking about actually financing and instead of borrowing from ourselves or saving for the rainy day when I'm gonna save, 10 years, for a piece of, to do something, but then you don't have the money, or 10 years from now, people who aren't going to be here to use it aren't here, but they paid for it. So we just have to have that serious
And
conversation.
we've also lost sight of the fact that the general fund is really a working capital account. It's not a capital account. And it
Right.
should be used as a working capital account and only a
Right.
working capital.
But we have some really good people on the budget committee that I think, grasp the notion now of the actual, sometimes you gotta borrow money to get projects done. Because had we done this in 2008, 2008,
Oh, my gosh.
I'm talking about if we had actually borrowed properly, when money was at 0.5%, 2008 to
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
2012. The amount of things that Waldeboro could have accomplished would have been phenomenal.
Yeah, good point.
Nobody has the courage.
Any other updates for the town?
I don't think so. We're buying a ladder truck other than
I
that.
heard a rumor about that.
Yeah.
$1 million well spent is what I heard.
Well spent, yes.
Yes. Well leased.
I got a question.
Well, leased, yeah. Well, leased to own though, right? Leased to own.
Leased to own.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the 235 intersection on Magtown. As it relates to 220 and Old Augusta Road, that intersection, what's the status of that?
We need $300,000.
Say again? I'm
We
sorry.
need $300,000.
Right. And so in other words, no more mirrors, they're gone. There is some blinking lights to warn.
That's all the state was willing to do.
That's all the state. So we still have the basic problem of that intersection.
And what, 5 or 6 others?
Well,
Yeah.
there's three.
Right.
That's the third. That's the third most dangerous one. 1 and 2 haven't even had price tags put on them yet. But that's $300,000 right there.
And
Are you
that's-
thinking
and
for a
that's the
street
John
light?
Daigle budget, 300, not the state budget, which
Well,
is
that's the
500?
budget that the state will agree to.
Oh, okay.
John, are you saying you need a street light at that intersection? What are you saying you need?
Well,
Stoplights.
there's a very blind.
The hill technically needs to be taken out.
Right.
Oh, my gosh.
There's a very sharp rise. It's
Yeah.
totally
Oh.
blind for southbound.
And
Got
and it includes large gravel trucks coming from the quarries out of Washington. They're totally
Yeah.
not visible to anyone that comes into that
Yeah.
intersection.
When I go there, I put the windows down to hear whoever's coming.
If you're coming Route 1, they'll do like a flashing yellow light on hidden intersections, and they'll do a warning, you know.
They have that now,
They have
after
that
we
now.
had a big meeting with them, but prior to that, they weren't really willing to do anything. Manktown Road and, I forget what other intersection that is, the Manktown Road.
235.
Two-
We had an accident there not too long ago.
The Manktown Road,
That's a tough one.
that's a really bad, that's the -- 1 most dangerous one. Yeah, so, those are the things that, we have to plan for on top of. We even said, hey, if you engineer it, we will build it, and they were not thrilled with that idea.
Yeah, okay. Well, since that project was being overseen by another resident in my area who's no longer active, I don't know if you've had any other contact other than this comment, that there is still
We have a
Issue.
letter that got back. Well, no, we know there's an issue. It's just a matter of funding it. And then it's the ranking of the funding.
Right.
Because in DOT's eyes, you have, and if you look at the accident statistics, the Manktown one is far more dangerous than the Old Augusta Road one.
How's Moody's parking lot shaping up? Moody's Cat Diner. That used to be the most dangerous spot in the whole area, 235 and,
I don't know.
They
I
have
mean, I
the-
can at least,
they
from
have-
what is reported on Facebook, it's working much better now.
it's probably, what I mentioned is probably ancient history. Let it lay.
All right. Okay, well, that takes us up to, John, your report, communication
okay.
technology.
Well, as we close in on the completion of broadband in this town for all the residents, we are left with about 15 or 16 unserved residents in this town. And they are located primarily in 2 locations that have been identified. And we had just tried to get Spectrum to do one of them, which is a third of a mile on a road that has 5 residents on it that are right next to the existing cable. And they offered to put a small amount of money into that and expect the town to pick up the difference rather than do a 50-50 share kind of arrangement. So that is stopped. And in the meantime, Max and I went out and measured to see what it would take to put poles from the north end of Flanders Corner Road down to those residents so that LCI fiber could be continued on our road. And we determined that it's 3 poles, and it's 915 feet.
That's all it
And
is.
that would be the best, in my opinion, the best solution, rather than add cable onto that road from the south end, but to extend the poles somehow. And in light of municipal desire to have power on that road so that it could be backed up, if there's a failure in the north, they could switch and bring power into our area. We lose power all the time up there. So there'd be a multiple purpose for those 3 poles, not just the fiber. So, what do? I don't know. There's all kinds of money floating around all of a sudden, coming from the federal government.
But the governor-elect on the news
Yesterday.
this morning, yeah, is saying we're gonna do
Yesterday,
something.
they had a big
Yet to be
event with our Representative Pengree spoke. She's been working on this project for a long time in some kind of an ad hoc committee in Washington. There's $600 million that's been earmarked for rural America,
But that's,
federal money.
yeah, the problem with that is for areas that have less than 10 down and 1 up.
Right.
And they were supposed to, the word was that was gonna get changed to allow
Okay, so,
towns to expand
so what they
higher
said
there.
in the interview last night, and I listened to this very carefully 2 or 3 times, is this money is not going to go into Maine for whole town projects. It's only gonna be incremental build up.
Oh, that would be good.
And that's through Connect Me. And that was stated by the Connect Me director with the other people from in the same announcement.
That
So
would be
that
good.
says that there might be a way for us to get
Tap into that.
some funding to finish this town up.
That would be awesome.
That would be great.
But we have to figure out how to do it. I mean, the good news is, we already know, Connect Me, how they structure it with federal money for the first time, rather than state money, is the big question that has to be sorted out. And since we have so few people in 2, 3 locations, how does that get structured? And I think what we have to do is, I have some ideas about this, I've already thought about this a little bit. And I think we have to decide who we want, what provider we want to try and put ourselves together with for that purpose.
For the
And-
application.
Right, the grant will be done to do this in concert or in partnership with
A
a
provider.
provider.
Right.
USDA, yeah.
And so we have to decide whether we can, which provider is the most likely candidate for these projects. And it may be both, one for some and one for none, but I don't think so. We're thinking about that. So we have 6 residents on the south end of Flanders Corner Road that are in dire need of connectivity, that are unserved. At the same time, we also have Storer Mountain Road, which is going to be unserved because their tower is coming down because Red Zone doesn't want to continue to support it.
Did you guys look at the last CTC meeting, you talked to Mr.
Letney.
Letney
Yes.
about coming through his property? 'Cause
Yeah, we
the-
went and looked at that too.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And it isn't as practical as I thought, but it is a possibility.
Does fiber actually go up Jackson Road to the end?
Partly, but not all the way to the point where you
Not to the
bring it
barn on the
across.
end of the road, okay.
Right, and the poles that are in that area that are bringing the power across to Jackson or through there would have to be upgraded. They would never accept them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we went and looked at it. We had a field trip.
I heard.
Yeah. So, anyway, so those are the 2, and then the people on Store Mountain Road would most likely want to have fiber put up through there, because there's fiber right there on Old Augusta Road, and would make sense. So we have to sort through that. And the only other comment I want to make is there's Filer's Corner. There's a section of Filer's Corner which has a whole pole issue with a lot of poles that are too short between Old Augusta Road and Chapel in that area. There are 4 or 5 homes. The people there were not that interested when we went and visited them to see whether they wanted broadband. So out of the 4 or 5, we might get 2 on 3.5 miles. So I think we can put that one in, and since we categorize priorities, I'd put that one at the bottom of the list. And the only other comment to make in my meeting contribution is Chapel Road is waiting to hear
Yes.
what the feedback is from
It's an engineering.
Spectrum, right?
The only other thing I would have is, does anybody check their Wi-Fi today? In this room?
We did.
Yes,
Did it work?
We're very happy.
I
now.
tried, yes, I did.
Thank God.
You missed it this morning when we started the meeting. I said, well, I'm happy to
I
say.
had Mike Polai with his meter come in and say, Mike, okay, what are we at? He goes, you're good. I'm like, okay.
The only comment is, I think there's more latency than you want if you want to sign on to a site somewhere outside the building, like to check your email or check another site. There appears to be a delay in trying to get a response. Maybe I was waking up the server, I don't know.
I don't know, but it should be
But
good
it's just-
now.
But there is, who did that, by the way?
LCI.
Oh, good.
Oh, great.
Well, that's
Yeah, they
wonderful.
totally did everything for us. So.
Well, that's great.
That was part of the phone upgrade.
That's it.
Thank you.
So we're saving money on the phones. The
so
phones
Seth-
are working better.
Renewables.
We have questions.
So, yeah,
Oh, is there a
I
question?
just
I'm
wanted
sorry.
to ask John whether, and Julie whether it's worth having a meeting with LCI about those 3 poles on Flanders Counter Road.
Right. Well, that's an interesting question. I think we need to decide if we can bring in the power utility into that discussion, because if they make the poles so they can handle running CMP through there.
I would just make CMP run them if they're willing to do that.
If they're willing to.
Yeah,
We
but
can
trying to
ask.
make a project, how do we do that with a power utility? And that's, I don't have any experience there.
I call them first, because it'll take a little while.
We have a rep.
Rep, good, good.
Yeah, and then have them see what that's all about.
We lost our good rep who was from Waldeboro, but
Just as a follow-up question to that, knowing nothing about the topology and the geology of the road, with only 800 feet, could you potentially trench it? We're talking about a very short, low-cost distance.
idea.
It's, yeah,
You could get out there with a backhoe and do it in a day.
you're talking about the fiber.
Yeah, just the fiber, not the power. The power would be very
That's a
expensive.
possibility.
But just get it to the people
The
and we're done.
ledge potential in that area in the bar is high,
It is. okay.
yes.
So you have to,
There's,
upgrade
there's also the huge rock,
EMT. yeah.
granite rock potential in there too. The gigantic rocks.
I don't know the road, so,
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
But it's
That's
something-
Possible.
yeah, if possible, it might be worth investing a little time just looking at it and see. We have soil maps and you can do
Yeah.
a topographical.
They did a trench, as we all know, to get fiber down to Mangtown Road from Old Augusta Road along 235. They had to trench that, but that's right in the sweet spot of sand pits.
Well, we could get lucky, but it might be worth looking at in the
it's
short
worth
term.
looking at.
and be
So
a
they
dirt sheet
did that,
solution.
that's how they got through there.
And then go up.
Yeah, if you have to. 1 pole versus 3.
So the other thing I just should, since you asked me that question, Spectrum is crowing about their new high-speed connectivity that they're offering in this state. Just to, today on the news and last night on the news, they claim that they have adequate cable connections for residential use now that gives you the ability to work on the internet and stream videos into your home at the same time. And it's all upgraded, and they made it sound like it's all done. So how many
Where we
people,
are.
what's that?
Not where we are.
Well, that's the point of my question. How many people in this town are willing to support what I hear on the radio, on the news this morning? I mean, says that everybody has adequate connectivity for all kinds of high-speed use, and they've also quoted a price today, too. A lot lower than I'd ever thought. And this was on the news this morning
You
as
have
I
to
was waking up,
disconnect.
so
You have
don't
to
hold me to the numbers.
You have to disconnect and reconnect to get the good price.
They don't offer it to existing customers.
They
It's
don't
new
think
customers
existing
only.
customers can get it.
No, you
They're sneaky, I mean, well, I don't want to say sneaky, but.
Thank you.
But it's, it'll be like a 1-year deal and then they'll, it's like. And it's really to keep
But you
the
gotta
other
be
fire
careful.
guys out. That's what they're trying to do.
Their people don't like people that talk like that about them, so
Yeah.
be careful.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of their customers, so. Still.
I would offer a testimonial, not because I'm proud to do it, but they upgraded Dutch Neck and 32 and Gross Neck, of course. And we get extremely good service now, and I
From
pay
Spectrum.
almost nothing for it. It's insanely good. And the actual performance numbers, I'm a technical guy, I care. whenever you measure them, they're at least 20 or 30% higher than their advertisements.
You don't get any buffering when you're streaming?
We get extraordinary performance.
Wow.
Yes. It's just really remarkable.
What is
We get
your price per
120,
month?
130 routinely and 20 up instead of the 10.
Wow.
Now, that's not good enough for some things,
Yeah.
but as for streaming and doing business at home, business like yours, more than adequate.
Question, how much do you pay per month?
I'm one of the grandfathered in old customers, so they wouldn't give me the new rate. My understanding there was a $45 rate for Waldeboro for a while to break Tidemark. That was their Tidewater.
LCI,
Yeah, and it was very specific. It was only available to Booth Bay in Waldeboro. And I don't know if that continues. In fact, I just sent a new member for the co-working place, moved into town over on Pine Street, and they're an older couple they're renting from while they're building their house. Spectrum declined to upgrade their service a couple days ago. They have it to their house, but they won't give them the 100 without a higher payment. So we're pushing back on that, and maybe I can report next month something
Did you
changed.
receive a letter from somebody up by Morse Sauerkraut that got disconnected from the
No,
tower? He's promised me he'd write you a letter that you could have
no,
for your file on this subject.
no.
The reason I'm telling you this is when they disconnect that tower on the edge of Waldeboro, on Letney's property, there are people that are impacted. That,
Right, no, nobody from that has,
Is that red zone, Cal?
yes,
Yeah, it was red zone.
right.
All right, so that takes us to Seth, your renewables committee report.
Just a couple things. First, following up on the solar, Peg and I had a conversation the other day to try to figure out what the actual money flows look like so we could see if we're on track to save our $1,300 for the first year. It looks like because of the delays, I haven't actually seen Peg's number, but she said we're about at parity right now, but because of the 3-month or 4-month delay, we're not likely to make the savings projection for the first year. And this was solely on CMP. The thing was running on December 30th or 28th last year. They just wouldn't connect us for 3 months, or maybe it was 4 months. So we lost that savings opportunity there. The practical realities will never recover that. They won't grant us that. There are also apparently some still allocation and billing issues that Peggy's working through. They're just impossible to work with, really. Very difficult to work with.
they are.
There was some kind of
Yeah.
investigation or inquiry reported about CMP, and
Yep.
it sounds like nothing's wrong.
That's what they said yesterday.
Yeah, I know, I heard that.
Nothing was wrong.
So
Well,
We
I
all
think
just
our
use more money.
We're getting
issue,
lots of money, everything's wonderful.
we've been credited most of what that was the biggest issue for us,
Yeah.
was just getting them to even,
do they acknowledge?
they have to hand bill us, apparently, that's what we were
They had to
told.
All net
acknowledge,
metering people.
Yeah.
It's the
they
same.
acknowledged that they had done something wrong?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, after a lot of, not in so many words, but after a lot of phone calls and nasty emails and.
Okay, anyway.
But as of today, we're getting credit for that.
As far as I know,
Oh,
we're getting
yeah.
full
We
credit
get
for
full
everything we
credit
produce.
for everything we
and we're getting
produce. That's
cheap
not the
power.
issue. It was
Yep.
where it was going to.
Yeah. The
And then
allocation
they retro applied it. So I'm like, well, where's our check? Because we paid because we couldn't have our power shut off. So that was part of the problem. We had to keep paying the electric bill,
The full boat.
the full boat,
Yeah.
or else it would have shut. They would have shut our electric off, and that made no sense at all to any of us. But it's
Wow.
like, what the heck?
The other part of that problem involves GE meters that go on the wireless smart meter system that they're talking about. That's what they've now homed in, and anyone that has a GE meter on their house better check their billing.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
With respect to the possibility that it's a solar topic, Sylvania slab, I've lost track completely, except it sounds like there's more problems with that whole,
There could be. We don't know yet.
okay, so.
So wait and see.
So there's everything's tabled with respect to putting.
No, I think
Not
they're
quite, no.
We're waiting to meet with their new
their new property
property
manager.
manager.
Okay.
She apparently, well, have you met her?
I haven't heard that there is one. You were the only
I-
person who.
Yes,
heard
I
that
heard
there
too
is
that there is
one.
one from Ron, and
Yeah.
there's supposed to be some kind of benchmark thing happening in January. So there is some progress. I'm not. in the
Well, I don't
loop.
think it's a benchmark about the solar. I think that's the report we're
No,
waiting
it's,
for.
it's about the property.
It's about the property, but that has implications about whether they'll talk about
Right.
going forward, doing
Yeah.
something.
That's why I,
And that sounded to me relatively positive, but I'm not embedded deeply in it, so I
The
don't know.
task force has come up with some good ideas. One of them from Mike Thomas not Thomas, right, is to cap it at that slab, like like you cap a landfill. You just cap it and then use that as a base for the.
capping means burying it under something else.
Impervious
Yeah.
materials.
I mean, the cement's impervious, but
They would line it and then.
Not
put
really.
soil on it.
Yep.
Yeah, he had a really great idea.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. I like him.
So
That's
in
what
that
he does for
regard-
a living, though.
I have been
That's what he does for a living.
Yeah.
So
continuing to talk with Ron about that, and he says something's gonna happen, he thinks, in January, and he's talking directly to them. And his particular interest is, could we possibly tie some solar development there with powering the school with a PPA, the RSU 40 schools. I've been continuing to work on that in terms of aggregating the numbers. We have, with the school energy budget, we have the same problem we had in a very minor way here that may go away as soon as we redo the high back and the lighting, which is the peak demand happens here in this building 3 times a year, or did last time we looked, for 15-minute intervals. And it kicks us into a medium general service category, which changes pricing. It puts you into a demand charge, which is not a good thing. For us, it's relatively small money difference for our consumption, which is small. The school is 10 times bigger. The district, they used $200,000 worth of electricity 2 years ago. So the impact would be much greater if we could figure out how to ameliorate that problem. The downside of that is we can't. They're like a large industrial consumer. They're always up in the medium general
There's
service
a
category.
wonderful newspaper article 2-3 days ago on that very topic for the entire state. And solar voltaic is taking the edge off that point where it's disappearing in the state. We've got just barely installed enough solar voltaic to eliminate that peak.
Well, that's a grid peak issue. That's
Yes.
slightly different. I'm talking about the actual building itself,
Okay, okay.
which is, for the customer, that's much more important. For us as a customer.
once you're in
Or
the
the school
demand,
district. You get into, this guy knows about this. You're basically screwed. You can't get out of it.
Why-
And once you trip it, it goes for a year. You're done for a year, and you pay the higher demand rates, even if you only do it once in a 15-minute interval.
What would create a peak at a school? I mean, you would think that would be a
They-
pretty
that-
steady load.
They don't have that problem. But
They
what
just
creates it
always-
here is when the high vac, which is old, obsolete, all that stuff starts up and the lights are going, or in the middle of the winter. We just have these tiny, tiny little blips,
You can have
and
a
they
10
latch onto it automatically. They see it
you can have 10 minutes affect you for a year.
for a year.
Right,
Yes.
yeah, I got that. I thought you said it happened at the school.
No, the school doesn't have this problem.
Okay.
Most of the schools are too small, but a couple, the middle school, the high school, Warren, that's it, those 3, are always in the medium general service category. So they're always facing a demand charge. And just as a reminder, the reason that's important is net metering, as currently constituted by the PUC, does not allow you to pay your demand charges with the power you generate. So you could have a 2 megawatt thing on Sylvania, be generating tons of excess power, but you're not allowed legally to pay your bill with that generated net metering power. It's insane. We may see that change this year. A lot of us are hoping. That's a major structural change about how the grid is managed, though. That's not just solar power. So that may be a few years down.
With respect to the politics, which you so just alluded to, I think, are there any, when we look at the terrain in Augusta now, are there any steps or responses we should have anticipating a different climate up there?
My sense is absolutely. My guess is the PUC is toast. The PUC has been the main obstruction to net metering in general, and it was pushed by LePage and the Republicans. That's really all open book right now. How long it'll take to fix it, I don't know.
Does it affect anything we're discussing or deciding or voting on in the?
In the short term, I don't think. You can't deal with the demand charge issue. That's a years long, that's a grid scale thing, a big problem. Nationally, it's not just us, it's everybody who has a demand charge.
There was a very general
Needs to be
question.
more education to get strong opinions so that they
Yeah.
can go through the process.
And I think the main answer to what you're saying is there will be a significant push of that I'm a part of, through SEAM and other people, to try to undermine the disinformation campaign of the prior administration that were cost shifting onto poor people, which is just demonstrably not true. But it's been very, very hard to fight because the administration has all the big guns.
I love the expression, to undermine the disinformation.
Well, yes, sir. Well, it's all about alternative
Does
facts.
anybody here have contact with Mark Van Ooy?
Not that I know of, but my guess is his
We've
days are
reached
numbered.
out to him. He's
Yeah,
never come.
I agree.
His numbers are probably
down.
Turned
different
out.
days. The other interesting thing that I have to report is I sent a brief paper around, something I just became aware of a couple weeks ago. I completely missed it, I don't know how, because I do follow Efficiency Maine. Efficiency Maine has an electric vehicle infrastructure initiative underway. It's really very interesting.
It's the charging station.
That's the charging station. So those of you who've been through Kennebunk have seen on the service plaza, the 8 Tesla machines there. And I've actually seen people plugged into them. They reported just last week that they've had 2,000 charging incidents in 6 months.
So you pull
Which is
in there
much
with your
higher.
Tesla, plug it in, whip out your credit card, and
If you go
Cost
to
you $4
Target in
bucks.
Augusta, you can in your
Yeah.
Tesla too.
Yes.
And you,
Yeah.
I was talking to a
Hanford.
guy, actually in Castine last summer, in a Tesla, and I said, so what does it cost? And he made me believe, or had
It's
me
true.
believe, that you don't have to pay to plug your car in.
It depends on which installation it is.
But there are some you actually just say thanks and drive away.
Not many. I mean,
bill
they're
you.
demonstration
Some of them
projects.
bill you, some of them you put the card in.
With Efficiency Maine, they're all billable. The
Yeah.
credit systems are all built into it, the
Yeah.
charging for your credit card charging. It's
Yeah.
all automatically, it's all integrated. The good news is you sit in your Leaf or your Tesla, you put in your credit card, and it's a $7 bill
Yeah.
instead of a
Tesla's
$80
different,
high test
Yeah.
bill.
Wow.
Tesla kind of subsidizes their.
And
The electric costs are just very, very,
Yeah.
very low. Anyway, they've gotten the first quarter with what are called level 3 fast charging, basically more or less deployed.
How fast is fast charging?
Half an hour for a Tesla. I mean, this is super fast. And so this is part of the conversation we need to think about, I think. Phase 2, which is the Route 1 corridor and some other ancillary things connecting to Quebec and other stuff. We apparently made a promise to the Prime Minister of Canada to electrify the corridor. And so we're going to have very expensive charging stations up through Jackman, which nobody will ever use, but we made the promise that they have to go there. That's now been mostly satisfied.
Wow.
If you look at the maps in the thing I sent you, they're really interesting. Look, start on page 24 and just look at some of those maps. They go right through here. And the Route 1 corridor, as we all know, is hugely strategic for the tourist trade.
Yes.
And we want to attract people to stop and plug in. We are already a major fuel stop. That's why we have so damn many gas stations. To add a charging facility here on Route 1, on a town lot, whatever, that was a joke, would be fantastic. The initial suggested location is Wiscasset,
Wiscasset, and then
which means after you sat for 2 hours in traffic at the bridge, you can then go sit for another half hour and plug in your car. That's only a partially funny joke. That could work to our advantage. I talked to the director of the program of this initiative, who's down in Brunswick, Ann Stephenson, and she is encouraging us strongly to submit an application.
Super.
The good news is it wouldn't necessarily require any money from the town at all. We would be in a coordinating and enthusiastic support capacity, which we could probably do. We have lots of places along the Route 1 corridor where they could be. They're very small. You just need an area the size of this room in a corner of a parking lot. What you do need for the phase 3
It's phase 2.
charging,
Phase 2.
3, the fast charging, which we would want, is very high capacity 3-phase power.
Yeah.
Runs right down our street from the substation. We are uniquely situated in that we could, for very low electrician's cost, build the required, not only immediate infrastructure, but they require you to build in future-proofing. For us, it would be trivial to do. I mean, we wouldn't do it. The federal government, through the VW diesel scam initiative, is paying for all this. It's wonderful.
You're welcome.
Yes, right. I thought I spelled
Thank you,
something.
George.
Yeah, thanks, George.
I had one too.
Why wouldn't you look at somebody like Hannaford or
We should,
the
so,
local gas stations that we have on the.
so
on the
here's
corridor
my
already?
suggestion.
We need to find out what the requirements are for this RFP. And
Yes,
that's-
so,
we still don't know.
just in closing the
But do
official
we do it, or,
report.
like, is that something the town would do, or is that something
No,
Hannaford
it's-
would do?
that's-
So
there's
the
a
RFPs are being
collaboration.
written right now, she said. They hope to get them out in January, and then anybody, an individual, a business, a town, a consortium of, even a county thing, although that doesn't really make sense because it's physically located someplace, can apply. And they are strongly encouraging municipalities to apply as economic development issues. That's why I bring it to you.
We have to see what the requirements are. I've dealt with
Yeah.
their RFPs for different issues, and this sounds like it could be very straightforward.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're very detailed, and I'm sure they're gonna want from us information on, what the traffic counts is, why this location is suitable.
That's why I
and
handed
things
it
like
over
that.
to you two.
Yeah.
That's your
And
thing.
that, once we
Well,
see
we'll just have
that,
to see.
I think
But
it's
they've
easier.
already identified Route,
Oh, Route one.
The
That's
Route
the
1 is a
right,
given,
yeah.
because it's hugely
I
trafficked.
think Seth hit the nail on the head. Our gas station location gives us, it fits right into that.
Fits right in.
Absolutely it does.
Yeah.
And if we think from our personal perspective as a town, this could be a really interesting economic development opportunity, because people are gonna stop here. If they're using-
Starbucks.
Maybe, I'm not sure I want a Starbucks here, but a local
vote on
coffee shop, something like Deb's, next to the charging station, or something, whatever.
Hannaford also, in other southern Maine locations, has both the level 2 and level 3 chargers
Yeah.
on some of. And there is one in the Rockport station, Hannaford. There's a level 2, which is free. They offer.
They
it.
just
It's a
underwrite it.
natural, because if you're a tourist,
Yeah.
you stop, charge your battery, it takes half hour or
Yeah.
whatever, you go do some grocery shopping, and when you go out, your car's ready.
And that's where, depending on the
you go to Starbucks.
solicitation.
Or go to like a Star, or
So,
Dunkin'
so
Donuts.
one thing to be aware of technically.
Yeah, more traffic
Or
at Dunkin'
Starbucks.
Donuts, that's what we need.
Yeah, no
The
kidding.
the level 2 and the level 3 chargers are very different, and you do need an hour, which is why Hannaford's does the level 2. Because you're gonna be in the supermarket for 45 minutes an hour, and then if you additionally need to wait, you just have a coffee. And now you've got your hour taken care of.
Nice piece of property attached to Tucker Chevrolet.
Yeah,
Yeah, perfect
where that
spot.
greenhouse used to
Lee
be.
Automotive and.
So there are
Tom's,
many things along here, and we might solicit a business. Irving, for example, has a large parking lot.
They do.
Next to Jefferson Street, it would be perfect.
The
And
best
they
spot
might wanna-
for it, the best spot for it would be somewhere in the
Turn
village.
turn off.
Well, the question is,
The
if you take it
village.
off the road, and that's a really good point, Bob. They are encouraging anybody within, I think it's 2 miles of Route 1. In their criteria, it's really quite a ways off. The practical reality is it's gonna be on Route 1.
It's gotta be on the
It's gotta be
road.
on the road, and big signage, advertising, all of
easily
that.
marked.
It would be perfect in the village, but we don't even have parking for what we have in the village. We
Nope.
have a real crunch
Yeah, the
downtown.
village would not be a good.
Yeah.
You-
Unfortunately.
You put a Trader Joe's in the field in front of your property with a Starbucks.
Sounds starting to sound like Karen.
Do I hear this name over? You own
Actually,
stock
we
in Starbucks?
No, I like
Seth, we kind of flagged, they had Camden on the thing, but there is no
Yes.
there's on the edge of Rockport or over into Northport
Yes,
would be the two.
Yep.
But then they flagged Belfast as another
yep.
location, and Belfast makes sense,
Yep.
there,
Yep.
so it has to be further down toward. Because
Yep.
we looked at Rockland very quickly, Camden, and there's really no unique, Rockport seems to be a good.
Well, the interesting thing about Rockland, which is not on the radar of Efficiency Maine for some reason, it's the hub of economic activity.
Yeah.
Rockport is booming.
Yeah.
And I don't mean, I said Rockport, I meant Rockland.
Yeah.
Rockland. And that, for us, is good because it's further to Rockland than to Rockport.
I know.
Almost. And it's on Route 1. And we would be a perfect way stop because these charging stations need to be 50 miles or less between stops.
I'd like to see them moved in with a upgraded railroad station in Waldoboro.
Yeah.
Electric trains.
Like the cars.
Anyway, I
and
think
the-
that's,
Like the cars and
so
the-
we'll see more about this.
Train
I'll be
upgrade.
keeping track of it. And we'll see what happens in January with the RFPs. And I'm on all the mailing lists now and I'll share with you whatever I learn.
I'm going to excuse myself, that phone call was actually from the salmon people in Belfast.
Oh,
I would take that call.
They listened to you.
Are-
They did.
That's
Are they moving the
wonderful.
entire operation to Waldeboro now?
No.
He's gonna take care of part of their problem, maybe.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, they've got a waste stream that
Yes.
is fertilizer.
I was thinking of you the other day.
Thank you all.
Thank you, George.
Yep.
So
All
that's,
right,
that's
good.
it for me, I think.
All right. Old business, we have the pamphlets
Yep.
printed. So if anybody didn't know,
I don't want to see one. I've only seen the prototype.
that's the only actual hard copy I have of a real pamphlet.
Do we have these printed in volume now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could
They're
you,
in the
could you
office.
get a handful and,
Yeah, it'd be great. I would like to put some of these, for example, in the annex. People come in and take things for local touristy stuff.
Yeah.
And we're gonna build a rack for them, and the WBA probably wants some as well, for the same
Yeah, we
reason.
could put the PDF on the WBA website for
Absolutely,
starters.
yes.
and on our website?
And
And on my,
ours.
businesses
Yeah,
can
he'd
do it
have to
too.
just give it to Liam.
Yep.
But they're printed and we got them and hallelujah.
Only took 2 years?
Only took 2 years.
Hey.
You know,
Actually, probably a little
Amazing.
more.
Things
And
happen.
so I'm not gonna, this is our last meeting of the year, so, but I'm gonna say, this was a two-part process.
very good.
This was the pamphlet, to kind of the rah-rah pamphlet, but we still need a doing business in Waldeboro.
How to do.
How-to
Yep.
book.
Yeah.
And
Actually,
so,
Max is working
starting in the new year, we'll have to get a team together to,
Max is already working on it.
Max is
What am I
working on
doing?
that. With the planning board, too. Yeah.
the how to do business
Excellent,
in
thank you.
Waldeboro book. Are you working on that?
Yes.
There we go. Awesome.
So tell us
don't
about
know
what
if
you're
you want
working on and what the timeline is. Thank you.
2 years from now, so.
That fast? You guys are on the fast track.
So this little booklet, or I suppose it's. I'm sorry. What are the things you're wanting to know about it?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? What's
With
it
this
gonna look
booklet,
like?
what form it's gonna
the
take?
front page is a quick little flow chart to just really summarize people who are coming to Waldeboro and wondering what they need to do for approval, permits, whatnot.
Okay.
It's supposed to be a very quick version of the land use ordinance. So I'm taking hundreds of pages and trying to condense it down to, I think, 10 pages at most. So there's a flow chart for the person who just wants a quick visual thing, and then the other 9 pages are just a word-by-word description. It's something that I'll always have in the planning office. So
All the contacts will be like planner at Waldeboro.
yeah, it'll just say it has the letterhead that is usually out with most municipal documents, where it has the phone number, the fax, the email, all that up in the top right corner. And the big emphasis on this is, this is just for someone who wants a quick summary of it. I say quick.
Right.
But if you want a more thorough, helpful guide, call the town office, call the town planner. I'll have one in my office, so that if something was ever to happen and you have another 5 planners in 3 years,
No.
I'm just saying, if something happens.
We got a good 15 years ahead of us, Max.
I'm knocking on wood.
Good 15 years.
Then that'll be there, and
We
then
just broke you in.
That's right.
So the question is, the flow chart, that's gonna be an if statement. If
Yeah.
you're,
Yep.
If you're approved, go here. If not,
Well,
go back.
it's
Perfect.
more of
perfect.
it's more of just
For
looking at
engineers.
the bigger emphasis is Articles 3 and 7, which are the land use matrix and the shoreline ordinance. If you need to go to something that says PB, talk to the town planner, CEO, talk to Stan. If yes, get a building permit and just
Yeah,
quit
okay.
bothering us.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's
When do you think you'll have a draft of this ready?
I think actually the draft is done, but it's the reason I hesitate saying it's done is because we're gonna have to update it with the land use committee, Articles 3 and 7. So some of the pages are I take the matrix from the actual land use ordinance and put it in. So if we're changing it,
It could change it.
it's gonna change that.
Does this committee need to look at it? And I would think so. We'd want to have a review.
Can if you want.
Yeah, we do.
Because you've vetted it with the planning board or in the process also with the planning board.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. It was such a wonderful time.
So,
But we're the Economic Development Committee, and we may look at it and go,
Right, right. But they're looking at it from their they deal with the permitting.
you're looking at it
process.
from a mechanical point of view, and we may want to look at it from a more
Presentation.
creative,
Yeah.
really helping new businesses along kind of.
so
point of
Max,
view.
I'd like to probe that a little bit. Just as I was leaving the planning board, we had as an initiative to do basically exactly this, and you'll find it in our meeting minute notes and stuff. We had conceived of a pretty simple 2-page, something like that, 2 or 3 page, step by step, if you want to do this, sort of like, if you need to come to the planning board, here's this. But augmenting that with the procedural steps that, for example, the planning board needs to know, because that's not written down anywhere. Such that Bill wants to build a fish hatchery on Dutch Neck.
Sure.
There would be a very simple list of the people you should contact
Yep.
first to get just further information. So in the exploratory stages, you had a really nice, not exactly a flow chart, something with a little more teeth on it. Why did you make that funny face when you mentioned the planning board just now about, oh, that's hard or something? I'm just curious. Did that process not
It's not
continue?
a timely process, dealing with the planning board.
No.
It's not a timely process at all, that's why.
Are they not interested in it?
No, it's just not a timely process, very much like this committee. It's not timely, so.
I don't know what timely means. Tell me.
It
You know,
takes a lot of time.
We're production-based.
Yep.
So working with a committee, it takes
Time.
5-10 times longer to get something.
Gotcha,
produced.
okay.
Because if-
That's what we're concerned about.
Because if
too.
they have even the smallest issue, I have to
Yeah.
wait another month
Right.
before I
Course, right,
show it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So that never got accomplished.
Yeah.
That's part of what you're
And
saying.
that's
Now
probably
it's-
some of the
that's it.
timely
Okay.
type of issue.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they keep driving down Route 1 for another town to get a production.
Yeah, actually, most of the towns are about the same. There's
Yeah,
very
I know,
little
but still,
difference.
we want to be faster.
We can be better.
Attract people.
Absolutely.
We can be better.
Could we see what you have for a draft at our next meeting?
Yeah,
Or just email it.
I can email.
Nobody's using to wait a
Well,
month.
email it with the minutes, and then I'll
Yep.
attach it as to the next invite.
All right.
Good job.
All right.
Is there any reason we might want to invite the planning board to come in and talk, or a representative who just knows what their part of the process is?
Well, 2 of them are already on the EDC board. There's Ted and Tara.
Right, okay. That's right, Tara's not here. Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
All right. Any other new business?
One comment. It appears that LCI is changing the way they do their fiber connectivity to the outside world. And I'm not sure what that all means. It'd be interesting for us to try and figure that out, because it does impact some details that I won't bore you all with. But all of a sudden, AT&T has shown up in their routing process. If you do speed tests, for example, ping tests, speed tests, just something that I just.
No idea what you're
I know.
talking
So
about.
I'm
They
just-
tell you where AT&T is on that ping test? Where are they pinging from?
If you do
Boston or Portland?
Well, it's structured differently, and they've made it a little harder to figure those details
Ah,
out.
okay.
So the tool you want to use, and you can find this free on the internet, is traceroute. One word,
Okay,
traceroute.
yeah, I use
Traceroute.
speed test.
Speed test doesn't give you any
And on that
stepwise.
note,
Train
meeting
test
adjourned.
does.
So moved.
Thank you.
Traceroute.
Thanks,
By the
everybody.
way,
Every
the
single
the
hop
town
from
wireless
every single